The customer was so impressed when they just saw the cake. They were like, wow, this cake is beautiful. And in my mind, I knew, like, I had not baked. There are days that you're going to be lazy. You're not going to feel like doing the business. It's not like you're not going to jump out of bed and think, yay, I'm here to do. It needs to be something that you can actually do and enjoy. And, even the things that you enjoy, you can burn out, but you've got a better chance of lasting. Hello everyone, my name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. And in today's video I'm going to be sharing a life lesson, and this is a life lesson that I have drawn from the failed businesses that I have started here in Australia and also in Zimbabwe. And I feel like in life we learn a lot more from our failures than our successes, because when you succeed at something, you're so focused on the success and celebrating. You just get up and celebrate, and it's very rare that you look back and say, oh, what have I learned from that success? But when you fall, like, you want to get up. And when you get up, you want to find out what made you fall so you don't find yourself in the same position. So, our most unfortunate circumstances, our most painful situations are the ones which teach us our most valuable lessons, because that is when we really sit down and look back and reflect on what went wrong and why it went wrong. And I've done a video previously on this channel about, the different side hustles that you can start here in Australia, because I am a big advocate and supporter and promoter of having multiple sources of income. If we learned anything during the pandemic, is that things can turn around at any moment. Things can be like what you thought was safe can turn out to be so uncertain, and it can be pulled, like the rug under your feet, and you'll just be left stranded. So it's always good to explore different sources of income, because most people are multi-talented beings. They do a lot of different things and they do them well. Now, talking about back to my failed businesses, I want to share with you a few of the businesses that I've tried and why they failed and what I learned from those failures, and that I draw from now as I do the other business ventures that I'm working on. Firstly, I'll talk about one of my very first business ventures. Now, this was it started in very difficult times. So one of my first business ventures I started in Zimbabwe, and I believe it was in 2000. It was around 2006. It was during that time when things were very, very tough in Zimbabwe. If you know that period, 2006 to 2008, if you know that period, things were tough. So I really wanted to make, a little bit of money on the side. And I believe it was 2005, 2006. So I was actually still in high school at that time, towards the end of high school. And I used to work at my parents' workplace. I used to do some work for them there, and they would pay me. And I wanted to find another source of income, because I've always loved security, especially financial security, and I enjoy just the entrepreneurship journey. I really, really enjoy the creativity that it requires and stuff. So I started a catering business, and I used to make burgers, these sandwiches. I used to make ham rolls. They were not really burgers, they were ham rolls, just a piece of ham and some salad on a roll, and I would wrap it up and I would, sell to people at the workplace that I was working. And, I would take them, put them in a tray, go to the workplace because the shops were not very close. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's a gap for me to, maximize on, because these people want to eat food. They're in the workplace. They don't have time. Like it was mostly like for morning tea, like for their tea break. And I'm like, they want something for their tea break. And, it's too far for them to walk. And I can deliver like these ham rolls to them and they taste really good. And, they can have their morning tea without having to leave their desk. And they used to like send people, like some of the people who used to do work around the office, to go and get them stuff at the shop. So I'm like, I definitely know that they want food because I've seen them sending people. So let me make food and bring them. And my ham rolls were so popular. I enjoyed making them, and, I started getting money. People would pay me, and when I made a profit, I would get more ingredients to make, more of a variety, like to have more variety in my ham rolls. Now, my business was booming at that time. Like my rolls were selling out and I was really, really excited. And I was like in my late teens at this time. And, I was really, really excited and I was proud of myself. And then somebody approached me, who was one of my customers for these ham rolls. They approached me and they're like, you make really good ham rolls. Do you make cakes as well? Because, I have my niece's birthday coming up and I want to get her a birthday cake. Now, the hustler in me was like, I've baked a cake before. So I was just like, yeah, I can do this. So I'm like, yeah, I make cakes. And they're like, yeah, I just want a birthday cake. They told me what they wanted written on the cake and stuff like that. I'm like, sweet, like I can do that. And guys, I had never made a birthday cake before. I had baked at home, but I had never made a birthday cake. So this was my very first like experiment. And I had assured this customer that, I can make really good birthday cakes. And they really trusted in me. So I didn't want to fail. So what did I do? I went into my kitchen and whipped together a cake. Lo and behold, that cake was not a cake. Like it came out, but then it like flopped in the middle, like it was sunken in the middle. And I'm just like, there's absolutely nothing I can do to save this. And the order was due, like I baked it the night before, and this order was due the next day, the next morning. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So what I did is we had this grocery store, our local grocery store, and I knew that they made cakes. So I'm like, I'm just gonna have to go and buy a cake. But I didn't like a cake that you've bought in a supermarket. Like you can tell, the designs, they're quite basic. And I'm like, one thing I'm good at is creating. I'm really creative, so I can redesign the cake. So I remember I bought little cake design things like sprinkles, Smarties. I got all these things and things to write on the cake. I went to buy a cake early in the morning before I went to work to deliver it. Early, as soon as they opened the shop, I went to buy this cake, and I used the already existing cream, like the icing on the cake. I just re-iced the cake. I took off everything that they had decorated with. I re-iced the cake, made it into another design, redecorated the cake, and I wrote happy birthday, niece's name there. And I went to deliver this cake to the customer. The customer was so impressed when they just saw the cake. They were like, wow, this cake is beautiful. And in my mind, I knew I had not baked this cake, but I had to deliver because I didn't want to disappoint my client. So they paid me, and I just added a bit of money on top for the ingredients that I had bought to decorate it, and I added a little bit extra so that I can make a profit, and I got the money for the cake. So that was my little catering baking side hustle. Now that business ended up failing, and I want to draw lessons from that. why that business ended up failing is because like I just stopped making rolls. Even though people kept buying, the business was like the rolls were getting sold out, but I had the same customers. The business wasn't growing, and I just got tired of waking up in the morning and making ham rolls. Like I just got tired of it. And the lesson that I've learned is, when you're starting a business, when you're starting a side hustle, always make sure that it's something that you enjoy. Like I liked cooking, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it to the level that I would have wanted to make it into a business. So I got burnt out over time. So it's really, really important to look for something that you know you can do long term. When you think of a business idea, like think about, can I still be doing this in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years? And if the feeling is, nah, I don't want to do this 5 years from now, then it's probably not a good venture for you to enter into, because you'll probably just burn out and leave the business. So that's what happened to me in that first side hustle. I just didn't enjoy the process enough for me to continue. So that is why it failed. And then a few years later, I came to Australia. Within the first few months of being in Australia, I had already started another side hustle. And I'll talk about actually how many? I'll talk about maybe a few that I've tried, because I've had so many. The first one was braiding, hair braiding. Now I used to braid hair, and in Australia, hair braiding is very lucrative. And at that time, this was like in 2008, 2009, I used to charge like $100 to $150 for single braids. And that was quite cheap. It was very competitive. I knew that I was charging less than my competitors. And the advantage that I had was I was very fast in braiding. So I would, people that I used to go to uni with, people would refer their friends, and I would braid hair. And I continued with this business. Again, I burnt out. And for the same reason, I noticed that I could do hair. I had the skill to braid, but I didn't particularly enjoy braiding to the point that I could see a future for me as a hair braider. And I just started getting tired, got tired of, standing for long periods of time, got tired of actually touching people's hair. And that's one thing about me, which is quite funny, because when you braid people, you have to be touching their hair. I used to get annoyed sometimes when someone comes with their hair that hasn't been washed or whatever. And I would just it just put me off the business. And I'm like, you know what? It takes too long to braid hair, and I don't like, touching people's hair anymore and stuff. So I just stopped hair braiding, and that business failed, because the end of it was basically, it ended or failed, or whatever word you want to use. But I stopped doing that business. And the lesson that I learned from that is, always look at the business that you're going to do. Look at the different elements that are involved in what you're going to be doing. And for me, I didn't like the element of touching people's hair, and sometimes it hasn't been washed for a while. And that's not something I had considered when I went into that business. Now, had I considered that going into that business, I would have said, well, I don't like people's hair not being washed. Maybe before I actually do someone's hair, I can offer a service to wash their hair and charge maybe a little bit extra, and make it as a package that before I braid your hair, I need to wash your hair. That way I know that the hair is clean. But I didn't think of that, because I didn't think through the process of the business. And that's another thing. Many times we start side hustles, we don't think of the end-to-end process. We don't actually think of what is actually involved in this business. Do we know the different elements? Do we know the different risks? How do we mitigate the different risks? How do we mitigate the things that we don't actually like? We don't really think about it holistically. And that's why a lot of businesses fail, because people start off, they're doing well, and then all of a sudden you find that they're no longer doing that business and you're wondering why. Because there was a certain element of that business that they hadn't really considered, or they hadn't really thought through, and they didn't have strategies to cope. So that is what happened with me with hair braiding. Now, I went into, after hair braiding, actually, it was kind of like at the same time, but this one was a little bit after hair braiding. I started another side hustle where I used to sell different things. I used to sell clothes, shoes, wigs, and makeup. And the reason for this is I used to get these items sent to me from America, because in Australia I had seen that there were certain styles of clothing that I wasn't finding in Australia, and also there was a bit of like, it was a bit harder to find good quality like hair weaves and stuff like that. It was good to find like some really, really good quality. And I just wanted to offer people something different. And I knew that there were certain styles that were available in America that weren't available here. In terms of makeup, there were certain shades that were really, really hard to find in Australia at that time. Now, Australia has progressed so much, like in that area. I'm so grateful. They've got a lot more shades for a wide variety of skin tones. So at that time, like especially for darker skin tones like my skin tone and darker, it was really, really hard to find good makeup that you could, you know, find conveniently in shops. There was only like maybe one brand that used to sell, and you know, it wasn't a really good match. So I got this stuff brought in and I started selling, and I made really, really good sales. I would sell, people were coming and looking at the clothes, like, you know, and the items were unique. I didn't have like too much of one thing. So if you knew that if you bought a pair of shoes, you're probably the only one with that pair of shoes, because I wasn't buying it in bulk. Like I had bits and pieces of like different things. So, and I used to sell to the people, so like sometimes people would come for hair braiding, and then I would show them like the other items that I was selling, and they would make a purchase and stuff like that. So that's how it used to go. So I continued in that business until again, I found out that, hey, you know what? I really, really don't like selling. Like I don't like pushing a sale. I don't like convincing people to buy something, especially if I can see that they really don't want it, but I want to make a sale. I really didn't like that process. So again, the business failed. I just stopped. I made quite a bit of profit from it. And then I'm like, you know what? I've made enough money from this. I don't want to continue it. And then I went on to do another business. Now, just from those businesses alone, the major life lesson that I've learned is, if you start a business based solely on income, that you want to make money, you're going to see that you're going to go through a lot of different businesses like I did in the past, and you're going to start, stop, and you're not going to be in there long enough to actually polish a skill, enough to actually build a solid client base, enough to actually give the business a chance to grow. So starting a business, starting a side hustle has a lot more to do than like just making money. You have to have a passion in that area. It needs to be something that you can actually do and enjoy. And you know, even the things that you enjoy, you can burn out, but you've got a better chance of lasting in that particular business if you enjoy doing that particular thing. So that's what I noticed, that, you know what, I need to have a passion. And the other thing that is even more important is give yourself time. In any business venture, give yourself time, because things are gonna happen. Businesses are up and down. Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad. So you never really know. Like it's kind of like these peaks, these troughs. It's always up and down. So you know, you need to really ride the wave and give it time. If you don't give your business time, you're going to just have a bad day, have a few bad days, and think this is not working out. Every side hustle, every business needs at the very least 2 solid years going at it strong for you to know if the business is working or not. If you have been in any kind of business, side hustle, venture, whatever it is, for less than 2 years and you want to give up, it is not long enough. You need to be in there for at least 2 years for you to know that this is really working out or not. Because 2 years, it gives you that time to really, polish your skill in that area, to really have a good view of what's going on. You might have a few bad days, but you give yourself time to recover. You're like, okay, maybe these are just a few bad days. Let me try new strategies. Let me do it again and see what happens next. Because the other thing is, if you're doing side hustles for just money and you're in and out, you're not actually going to make a lot of money, because you make money by growing a client base. You make money by, being consistent in something and actually having the drive and pushing through your emotions, so pushing through how your body feels. There are days that you're going to be lazy. You're not going to feel like doing the business. It's not like you're not going to jump out of bed and think, yay, I'm here to do this. You just have to push through. So allow yourself to build that strength to push through at least 2 years, where you're pushing through your laziness, you're pushing through procrastination, and you're pushing through all these things so that you can really, really last in that business and make a significant amount of money. And it can move from side hustle to actually a solid, standing, long-term business that you can actually transition into as a full-time business. So you really have to give things time. You need to look at it holistically, consider the different elements of the job, what is required. If you're willing to do everything that's required, if there's a certain element of that business that you don't like, what are you going to do to mitigate that? What strategies are you going to develop, whether to motivate yourself to do that task? But don't be very aware of what you are getting yourself into. There is so much opportunity in the world that we can harness, and I believe that a lot of people, I feel like everyone has potential to have multiple sources of income. It's all about going about it the right way. Choose something that you can foresee yourself doing in the next 5 years, even if you don't do it for 5 years, but at least project that, will I still want to be doing this in the next 5 years? Is this something that I want to continue it for that long? If it's not, then maybe think of something else. Is this something I can grow? Is this something I can scale? Is this something that is not going to stagnate and remain at the same size and I'll be having the same customers? Everyone has the potential to have a successful second source of income, or even a third. Everyone has the potential to have multiple sources of income and a successful side hustle or business. So just have to look at it holistically and look at the different things. And hopefully you will be able to learn something from my failed businesses, or businesses that I couldn't get to go over that 2-year mark. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one.